The weather delay has ended and our coverage can resume. We are set for the third event for the CrossFit athletes here at the 2023 Rogue Invitational from Dell Diamond Stadium in Round Rock, Texas. It is the Circus presented by Concept 2. Thanks for being with us, everybody. I'm Sean Woodland with Adrian Conway, and other than the weather delay, which I guess we kind of expected, more or less the CrossFit competition on the men's side has gone as expected.
It has gone as expected. I mean, we've got some athletes that are banking points the way that we assume they would. Jeff Adler, Ricky Garard, but then we've got Chandler Smith right there. He didn't do anything polarizing like win an event, but he has set himself up to be tied for the top spot as we enter here into event 3.
And it is tight atop the overall standings for the men. 3 men tied with 165 points, Adler, Garard, and Smith. As right now, Adler and Garard are tied as they each have an event win. Chandler Smith in 3rd place. Only 50 points separate 10th place Bjorgvin Carl Gudmundsson from Jeff Adler and Ricky Garard and Chandler Smith. Event number 3 is the Circus. We got a brand new implement out there.
We got a brand new implement, and that is not the only thing. And we get to revisit an oldie but goodie from the CrossFit Games back in 2011, the Killer Cage. But these athletes for event 3 are going to go through 40 calories on that ski erg. They are also going to then use the Circus dumbbell to execute 5 shoulder overhead. They could do that in any way, 5 on the right, 5 on the left. And then they've got to do the Killer Cage down and back.
Here are your lane assignments for the first of 2 heats for the men, and Ricky Garard will be out there in heat number 1. He'll be in lane 8, looking to rack up another win here at the Rogue Invitational. Once again, tied in points with Chandler Smith and Jeff Adler at 165 points. We mentioned that dumbbell. That is a new implement for these athletes, and for more on that, here's Kiki Dixon.
Guys, these Circus dumbbells are modeled after the Cyr Dumbbell. 2 of the biggest differences, it's all stainless steel and it has a much bigger handle. Practice makes progress with these things. I was chatting with Victor Hoffer and he said he's been working with the thicker dumbbell handle, and at first he had to do singles and now he can cycle through them. So we might want to keep our eye on Victor Hoffer.
Thank you, Kiki. We are underway. Athletes getting to work on that first round of 40 calories on the ski erg. And there have been some changes to this event, the main one being that they do not need to go unbroken now on those lengths down and back on the Killer Cage. If they are off of the Killer Cage, they can jump right back up where they left off, as opposed to having to go back to the beginning and start over.
Yeah, which is an understandable pivot that you've got to make. One of the contingencies that had to be in place due to the weather. I mean, it's wet out there. It's still continually raining. It's not as obvious on camera, but it's certainly coming down out there, and the athletes have to be able to manage their grip through this whole entire event. So it's going to be a challenge even just working through the Killer Cage, let alone now not having to be unbroken.
Garard on the right side in that black tank top. Going to stay towards the front here on this 40-calorie ski. There is Jason Hopper. He and Tudor Magda right now battling for the top spot on the first portion of this event. Tudor Magda looking to score some points here. He's in 19th place overall. Jason Hopper in 15th place overall. He took a 6th in Texas Heavy on Thursday night, then finished 19th in the last event. We still have a little bit of rain coming down here at Dell Diamond in Round Rock, Texas. Weather has been a factor all week.
Yep, when I was a football player, Sean, I used to say, it's football weather. But hey, man, it's just athlete weather out there. You got to be an athlete. You got to adapt to the surroundings. You might have to make some pivots and make some changes in how you approach something like the nuances of this dumbbell. But we're watching athletes like Travis Mayer right there make slight work of it, using a push press action, even transitioning directly overhead. We talked about that potentially being something that sets athletes apart. Will they have to break it up at 5, throw it down, and then make a switch? And we see here in round 1, many of the athletes already making fast work of the 10 reps and making it unbroken to start.
Garrett Clark is still working on his reps as Travis Mayer and Ricky Garard are on to the Killer Cage. And this does not, again, need to be unbroken. If they fall off, they can jump right back up and continue right where they left off.
Yeah, we're going to see some different techniques come into play here when we talk about this killer cage. Are athletes going to go hand over hand and only one touch each of the rungs, or are they going to double grip it, which means they're going to gather their hands every time that they switch? And certainly the technicalities might change as fatigue continues to progress and build throughout the course of this event. But as of right now, we're watching Magda, we're watching Hopper, we're watching Mayer all go hand over hand, one touching each rung as they advance.
Travis Mayer was the first man to make the turn, but Tudor Magda has made up a ton of ground, and he's going to be the first man off the killer cage, followed by Jason Hopper and Noah Olson. And they will start round 2.
Sean, and one of the keys that we talked about before this event got going as well is that you can't overpace the erg. This being that you're going to spend so much time for 40 calories for these men. They're spending so much time within this event on the erg itself. If you overpace it, which means go too slow, it's actually a place that you can lose significant amount of ground to a bigger, more powerful, and also a touch more courageous athlete if they're willing to lean in to ride their threshold on the other two movements. So it's not that we're watching these athletes just casually pace this ski at all. You see them hinging at the hip violently, closing that shoulder angle by pulling the grips down towards their knees, and then rapidly re-extending their body to go down for the next rep.
Tudor Magda continues to lead here. Now in round 2 of 3, there are 156 total scored repetitions in this event, 52 per round. Jason Hopper making up ground on the ski erg now on Tudor Magda. Noah Olson sits in 3rd. Will Morad, Bjorn Carl Gudmundsson rounding out the top 5. Travis Mayer is only a calorie back of Bjorn Carl Gudmundsson. He's starting to creep up. Noah Olson making his 4th appearance here at the Rogue Invitational. His best finish was when he took 3rd in 2020.
Yeah, we're not new to seeing Noah do things a little differently than the field. Sometimes he attacks things a little bit more aggressively out the gate. Sometimes he has a little bit more technique differences. But what we're seeing here, just even on the ski, he's got a very fast stroke rate. He's probably pulling with a touch less power, but more repetitions in order to get the acquired calories. Other athletes like Victor Hoffer or even Jason Hopper are actually pulling with more power and fewer strokes.
Jason Hopper onto the dumbbell for the 2nd time.
Jason using a push jerk where he actually rebends his knees to press under that dumbbell. Clearly he's thought this through and he's going to break it up before he gets to that left arm.
Jason part of that HWPO crew, and Strongman Rob Kearney, a coach there, so probably got a little input from Rob on this. And Hopper is done, and he'll head back to the killer cage for the 2nd time. And you mentioned this showing up in 2011. This is the same length as in 2011, 48 feet in total.
Yeah, again, which is nothing to just ignore. It's not something where athletes are like, that's not a big deal. You know, last year we watched athletes fly through the monkey bar setup that they had, but this is different. This is the killer cage, and it is something that they have to actually consider the volume and the amount of contractions that take place, specifically on the shoulder joint as they traverse all the way from one end to the other.
There is Will Morad, who right now is in 3rd place in this heat behind Noah Olson and Jason Hopper. Tudor Magda just got to the monkey bars.
Will Morad really making that look very effortless as he swings his way down. Hopper pausing a little.
Noah Olson has made the turn, and then he'll head back to the ski erg to start his 3rd and final round. First of 2 heats here for the men. 3rd of 9 events that they will face here at the 2023 Rogue Invitational. Hopper's off at the same time as Noah Olson, the two of them jogging back to the ski erg. And Tudor Magda once again has made up a ton of ground and moved himself into 3rd place ahead of Will Morad, as Magda will be the next man onto the ski erg. Garrett Clark, I believe, is on round 2. Just saw him in the gray shirt. He's at the far end of the field from Jason Hopper. He's still on his 2nd round.
And this is where Hopper's got to trust his conditioning a bit. He knows that he is bigger and stronger physically than someone like Noah. So if he's got to be really careful to seize the opportunity to gain some separation here. Noah's going to have a faster cycle rate to that dumbbell if he has the opportunity to get there, set up, and execute. And he also executed the traverse a touch faster on the killer cage. So if Hopper's aware, he's going to try to burn it down just a little bit more here on this interval of the ski and set himself up for success.
Ricky Garard is one of the men who came in tied at 165 points on top of the overall standings, and he is toward the back of the pack right now in this heat, just now getting to the ski erg for the third and final time.
Sean, and he was someone that I mentioned before we even took the floor here with this particular event. There are 3 movements taking place that are all taxing the shoulder in some shape or fashion. And we know that Ricky's recovering from shoulder surgery this year. So this is a great place for him to literally test the capacity. What's his recovery look like? How does he handle the shoulder being taxed in many different functions when it comes to movement? We're pulling down with the ski, we're pressing overhead with the dumbbell. Then of course we're hanging, and not only hanging, but doing it one arm at a time as we transition from rung to rung on the killer cage. So I'm sure he's experiencing a little bit of some upper body fatigue as all these guys are dealing with quite the pump in this event.
154 is what they're trying to hit before they get back to the cage. So Hopper's got 10 reps remaining on this dumbbell, 5 on each arm. Noah Olsen is holding off Bjorn Carl Gudmundsson for second place, and Olsen is just about done with his ski.
Hopper was off at 8:22. He did exactly what he needed to do in regards to buying himself time. And now if he wants to win this heat, he's got to think ahead as well. Don't wait for Noah. Know that the other 10 guys that are in the stable are going to be eyeing your time and gunning for it.
Bjorn Carl Gudmundsson in the white shirt in the background now moving to the dumbbell with Noah Olsen as Hopper takes off for his third and final trip down and back on the killer cage. Tudor Magda is onto the dumbbell, and we'll keep an eye on him when he gets to the killer cage because he has been extremely fast on that apparatus, as now Noah Olsen's taken off to join Hopper.
And Noah made a vet move. He did not put the dumbbell down between arms on that one, which allowed him to pull away from Tudor and BKG just a touch.
Magda trying to lock out these final reps on that 100-pound dumbbell as Hopper has made the turn and working his way back, looking to set the time to beat with 1 heat remaining. Taking a quick break and hopping back up. Noah Olsen is set to work his way back down, and now Tudor Magda in lane 2 is heading down. Jason Hopper is done, and Jason Hopper is going to take heat 1 of the Circus. Olsen got a no rep. He did not touch the final bar. He had to go back, and now he will sprint across the finish line. So Jason Hopper in at 10:03.10 seconds. Olsen's going to take second place in the heat. Magda has made the turn on his way back, trying to catch Bjorn Carl Gudmundsson, but Gudmundsson is not going to let that happen, so BKG gets in. A 15-minute time cap here, so plenty of time left as Gudmundsson is in at 10:31.89 seconds. Here comes Magda to lock up fourth place in the heat. Now Will Morad looking to be the next man to finish. Morad is off. He's going to be in a foot race with Bailey Martin in lane 5. Martin catching up, and that's going to be close as Martin hydroplanes his way across the finish. And it is going to be Bailey Martin by 3/100ths of a second, sliding into home, and it pays off for him as Travis Mayer is in. Here comes Victor Hoffer across the finish line as well. And now Ricky Garard is still out there along with Garrett Clark. So Garard, who came in tied for the overall lead, is going to surrender some points here in event 3, and he is in. That leaves Garrett Clark as the last man out on the field, and Clark is on the cage for the second time. And he has now 3 minutes to finish this workout. Noah Olsen, as he often does, is headed back out to the field to try to get Garrett Clark through this killer cage portion of the event.
Yep, Noah being Noah. Encouraging everybody left behind, trying to pull them along, get the fans involved.
finished. He's got about 2.5 minutes to do so.
And Garard almost experiencing a little bit of what it's like just to be new to this stage, right? A lot of these guys are veterans at newness. The adaptability that they've developed through the years of not knowing what something feels like, never touching an apparatus before, and then just winging it and still having great levels of success. It's a learned habit, it's a learned skill. One, not only to adapt to it, but two, to have confidence in yourself to be able to do that. It's certainly something that we're watching some of these young fellas go through out there on the field right now, and it's going to pay off down the road. This is a exponentially valuable learning experience for an athlete like Garard Clark, even as we watch him struggle here and learn as he goes.
Clark, one of the men who qualified through the Q, making his first appearance here at the Rogue Invitational.
Don't forget, folks, we still have a full heat stacked up and ready to go.
Comes from a pretty athletic family. Both of his parents and his sister collegiate athletes.
Yeah, and at this point, his grip is just shot. He's doing his best to even be able to link together multiple reps. We notice that he's doing the double touch to each rig, and that's just due to the time under tension there. He doesn't have confidence to go arm for arm and allow himself to go to the next rung.
Clark trying to just get back to the Ski Erg and as many calories as he possibly can before that 15-minute time cap hits. He's about 2/3 of the way there.
And here's the tough part. You know, I watch him do some of these reps, and I'm thinking, like, oh, well, maybe if he just strips down from the grips that he's using, right? Allow his body to be actually against the killer cage itself and reduce the diameter of his grip. But also, I've watched several athletes already finish this event with some bloody hands. So even though it could be costing him time, and at this point, he's likely not going to be losing a terrible amount of points unless we see someone else struggle in the next heat, at least he's going to be finishing with all of his skin intact and ready to attack what's to come.
And it does look like he has maybe torn that left hand a little bit. The final seconds for Garard Clark. He's going to fight to the finish here. And that will do it for heat number 1. So Jason Hopper at 10:03.10 seconds is your heat winner. Hopper coming into this event in 15th place overall. Looking to pocket some valuable points as he heads into Saturday.
Yeah, and Hopper did a great job at seizing the moment. And what I mean by that is on this ski, we knew that it was a place where the athletes were going to spend a lot of time. He was able to create some distance between himself and a close competitor, Noah Olsen, that was following right on his heels. He was smooth the entire 3 rounds with that shoulder overhead, choosing to utilize the push jerk. And even though he chose to drop that Circus dumbbell each and every time to transition, it allowed him some reprieve to be smooth as he needed to be onto the killer cage and on through the finish. He seized the moment when he needed to, and it paid off. And then Noah was really close to nipping at his heels, and all of a sudden, attention to detail, attention to detail. It's that final rung. You had to make contact with it, touch it, and then you could sprint through the finish. And that could cost Noah a place or two when we watch the next heat enter the competition floor.
Definitely cost Noah Olsen some time as Jason Hopper gets the win. Olsen's still going to finish second in that heat. Bjorn Carl Gudmundsson is third. Tudor Magda did some great work on the killer cage, and then Bailey Martin and Will Morad. Look how tight that was, just 3/100ths of a second separating the two of them as we get set for the second and final heat for the men as they close out their second day of competition here at the 2023 Rogue Invitational. Overall standings once again coming into this event. 3-way tie at 165 points. Adler and Garard tied for first because they both have the same event finishes. Chandler Smith currently sits in 3rd place, followed by Khrennikov and Pat Vellner. Here are the men who will be on the field for this second heat. Jeff Adler, one of your overall leaders, will be in lane number 5. Chandler Smith will be right next to him, so we will pay attention to that race as the two of them look to break that tie atop the overall standings.
Hey, someone I got my eye out on this for this particular event is Brent Fikowski. I think that, one, his size and his frame lend itself advantageous to an erg like the Ski Erg. Two, he's known as the professor in this community, folks. That means he digests and dissects workouts very differently psychologically and has a unique ability to apply that to the competition floor. Maybe he'll show us something we haven't seen yet with the killer cage or that dumbbell. I can't wait to see how he performs here.
Brent Fikowski, 9th place overall with 115 points. Took 4th in Texas Heavy, then followed that up with a 15th place finish earlier today in Seat at the Bar, and we are underway with those first 40 calories. Jason Hopper, he has the time to beat at 10:03.10 seconds.
Already we see some athletes pulling with some ferocity, hinging at the hip. Folks, if you're watching at home and you've never done a Ski Erg, it's a pretty solid clinic we're watching here. Athletes stay rooted through their heels. They stand quickly, close the hip by flexing through the trunk. You're going to feel it in your abdominals almost as much as you're feeling it in your lats when you pull down on this erg if you're doing it appropriately. And you really want to think about using force and power through your hips so that you can save your appendages, especially for an event like this with the work that's awaiting these guys on the other side, the dumbbell and, of course, the killer cage.
Yellow Hosta down in lane number 1 right now is your leader through 22 of those 40 calories. Roman Khrennikov keeping pace with him. Dallin Pepper and Fikowski along with Lazar Jukic up there as well. The 10 calories remain for both Hosta and Khrennikov. Roman Khrennikov, 4th place overall. Opened the competition in 3rd place in Texas Heavy. He took 10th. Seat at the bar. He is going to be the first man to the dumbbell, followed closely by Yellow Hosta.
Yeah, but there's not many athletes that move an erg like either of those two. Yella and Roman both having high capacity and output on almost any erg we've seen them on. Bike, ski erg, rower.
Dallin Pepper, Brent Fikowski, Lazar Jukic, and Jeff Adler all onto the dumbbell, as is Chandler Smith. And now Pat Vellner there as well, as Khrennikov is off for his first trip down and back on the killer cage. 48 feet in length, same length that we saw in 2011 when this piece of equipment made its debut. Now Fikowski is done. Pepper is done. Hosta's onto the killer cage. And Lazar Jukic. Here comes Vellner and Jeff Adler. Jake Crouch is going to be the last man to start his first trip.
And it seems right now all athletes have the similar method to transitioning from rung to rung here on the killer cage, right? Hand over hand, they're one touching the rig. No one's doubling up as of right now.
Khrennikov is done first, and he will start round 2. Back to the erg for 40 more calories. 4th place overall with 145 points, so only 20 points back of the leaders, as now Fikowski and Vellner are back. So Fikowski has made up some ground along with Pat Vellner. They are on to the erg, and here comes Yellow Hosta, Dallin Pepper, and Jeff Adler. Chandler Smith getting back to the erg as well, and Lazar Jukic making his way back to the ski erg. And Jay Crouch in lane 2, joining the rest of the athletes here in round number 2. 52 reps per round, 156 reps total. 104 rep mark, they will be done with round number 2.
And I'll tell you what makes it hard to catch Roman is, again, I've mentioned this before, but we're spending a significant amount of time on this erg. And he had already about 11 or 12 second buffer on Brent, even as he got on to his ski erg platform. So it's one of those things that he's going to be very difficult to close ground on right now. You're going to have to find ways. It could be the dumbbell. It could be the transition to the killer cage. And, of course, maybe it's the technique that Brent's going to be using here into round 2. We don't know. But the athletes have to be thinking that way, because Khrennikov is certainly someone hard to make up ground on the ski erg.
Brent Fikowski right now in 3rd place in the heat. Pat Vellner sits in 5th place in the heat. Vellner coming in 5th place overall. Started off with a 13th in Texas Heavy, and then a 2nd in the Circus. Brent Fikowski on the right side of your screen, his first appearance here at the Rogue Invitational. Roman Khrennikov back to the dumbbell for a second time, and he's having no problem with that 100-pound Cyr bell.
Smooth transition there. Almost treated it like a kettlebell swing to get it from one shoulder to the other. I like that method. It keeps you urgent, but it also reduces the margin for error trying to transition overhead.
There is Yella Hosta, who's racking that thing more like a traditional strongman would, as Roman Khrennikov is onto the cage for the second time. Brent Fikowski on the bottom of your screen, no shirt. He is in third place right now in the heat. Dallin Pepper, though, mauled his way through that dumbbell. He now sits in second, and here comes Fikowski, followed closely by Vellner and Hosta. Khrennikov is gonna make the turn. And when he got back for round number 2, he was slightly ahead of Jason Hopper's pace. Hopper with the time to beat at 10 minutes, 3.10 seconds.
And the beauty to the setup of this event is that Roman bought himself time on the ski. He was able to play the field and turn and face his opponents there with the dumbbell, and the same with the transition on the killer cage. He took a moment, gathered himself, got his grip together, and then made his way back, and now he is fully in control, being able to see the clock. He knows the time to beat and also be able to see the pack of the competitors that are right there behind him.
Here comes Brent Fikowski, who has moved ahead of Dallin Pepper for second place. So Fikowski is making a steady charge towards the front. Pat Vellner is off, and Vellner will be the third man to the Erg. And Jeff Adler will be fourth. Now, Roman Khrennikov came into this event only 20 points back of Jeff Adler. There are 5 points difference between each spot in the overall placements. If you finish first, you get 100, second gets 95, third gets 90, and so on. So Roman Khrennikov has a very good chance of erasing that deficit here.
Yeah, it really does. It's very much, we're so early in the course of this week that it's very much anyone's game. These athletes really have to be focused on one event at a time, capitalizing on getting as many points as available as possible. So I know that he'd love to see his name start to approach there towards the top of the leaderboard, but also I'm sure Roman's response would be, we got a lot of work to do.
Lazar Jukic is now back to the Erg for the final time on the right side of your screen. Roman Khrennikov continues to lead. Brent Fikowski and Pat Vellner right behind him, and now Jeff Adler in fourth place in the heat. Khrennikov in his final few calories here. He'll go back to the dumbbell for the third and final time. Khrennikov is done. 5 reps per arm here on that 100-pound dumbbell, and that is not going to be a problem for Roman Khrennikov.
See if he keeps it up. Yep, same swing technique to transition.
Brent Fikowski, meanwhile, is just about done with his third and final ski erg, but he's not even going to get to the dumbbell before Khrennikov is done. So Fikowski will start his 10 reps as Khrennikov is working his way back to the killer cage. Here comes Pat Vellner.
And now it's really Roman versus the clock. That awareness to the heat previous, which of course hopefully as a competitor is something that he had, and it'll be him versus that time to beat, which is of course 10:03 set by Jason Hopper in the previous heat.
Final couple of reps for Brent Fikowski. He is done. He's been really efficient on this part as Roman Khrennikov is taking a break at the other end of the killer cage, and now he's working his way back. He has plenty of time to win this event.
Here he goes, Khrennikov making his way.
And he's been very consistent, even with his remaining fluid on the killer cage. A lot of athletes at this point in the event had to stop or pause midway. Not Roman.
Khrennikov is off, and Khrennikov is on his way towards an event win here to close out day 2 of the 2023 Rogue Invitational. He can absolutely stroll his way to the finish because he just demolished Jason Hopper's time. 9:18.80 seconds. And now we will see what Adler and Smith do. As here comes Brent Fikowski. Fikowski is in, and that makes Hopper's time the third best that we have seen. So 90 points still up for grabs here as Pat Vellner is looking to lock up those. Vellner is in. Another strong finish for Pat Vellner.
Yeah, great performances by all three of these athletes. Very steady, very methodical. They did exactly what they knew they needed to.
Roman Khrennikov has a chance to be your overall leader at the end of day one because both Jeff Adler and Chandler Smith are still on the killer cage. Now, Noah Olson had the next best time at 10:14. We've passed that. And here comes Yelahosa. That's going to help Roman Khrennikov as well. Dallin Pepper is trying to be the next man across. Jeff Adler, Pepper, and here comes Chandler Smith in a foot race. And this one's going to be close. It looks like Adler may have gotten there, Pepper, and then Chandler Smith. And that is exactly what happened. 0.4 of a second separating the three of those men.
What a race. What urgency. We talk about trying to die for points, and they are willing to there.
Jay Crouch is in. Lazar Jukic will be the last man to finish, and he just closed out his third and final trip up and down the killer cage. And that'll do it for event 3 for the men, the Circus. And it's Roman Khrennikov who gets the 100 points and could be your overall leader heading into day number 3.
Kill them with consistency, right? Like, that's the goal. It's great to get victories when you can, but it's all about showing up on the ones that you might not win and then seizing the moment on those when you have the opportunity. Roman did just that in this event.
Second career event win for Roman Khrennikov.
And Roman really seized the moment right out of the gate on this particular event. We talked about how important it was on the ski erg, what you needed to do there. You needed to be aggressive if you knew that you could. You got to create separation between you and your fellow competitors. And I've got to say, I'm very surprised at how easy these athletes made it look on the Circus dumbbell throughout this entire test, and Roman was another one of those. He chose to go unbroken, a smooth transition between his legs to minimize the risk of transitioning overhead, and he had some smooth repetitions that were almost a hybrid between a push press and a push jerk there, and he made slight work of the killer cage by being steady and one-touching every one of these rungs from beginning to end, round 1 to round 3, and then, of course, the victory stroll across the platform. He said, calm down. I'm here for a long time. I'm not done yet. I'm just getting started.
Roman Khrennikov, second career event win, and he is with Kiki Dixon.
Congratulations on your event win. We had a little weather come through while you were out here. How did that affect things?
Ну, в принципе, немного начало смущать, что дождь идет, да, что будет не совсем стандартно для соревнований по кроссфиту. Ну, в принципе, когда первый заход начал, я такой уже подумал, ну все, погнали. Все в одинаковых условиях.
It was similar conditions for everybody. In the beginning, it was very hard to think that they're gonna work out during the rain. But then when everything started and everybody started going, it was fine.
This event with 3 different stations, which was the most difficult and why?
Ну, рукоход Monkey Bar, соответственно. Ну, на первых 2 я отдыхал.
The killer cage was the hardest. The first 2 he was resting at.
After this event win, you may currently sit first overall. If that's the case, what are you going to do tomorrow to keep it that way?
Приду домой, помоюсь, хорошо поем, позвоню жене, сыну, поговорю с семьей. буду хорошо спать и завтра вернусь еще с большей энергией.
He's gonna go home, take a shower, eat, call his wife, talk to her, talk to his son. Then he's gonna sleep, and then he's gonna come back with more energy than he had today.
All right, we look forward to seeing you back here tomorrow. Thanks, Roman, and congrats.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Roman Khrennikov, his second career event win at the Rogue Invitational, and maybe grabbing a hold of that top spot in the overall standings. 9:18.80 seconds. Jason Hopper's top time from Heat 1 is good enough for 4th place. Noah Olson rounding out the top 5 as Jeff Adler finishes in 9th. The circus is done for the men, and it's Roman Khrennikov who is the featured act. Women coming up next in Event 3. Stay with us, everybody, as our coverage continues of the 2023 Rogue Invitational at Dell Diamond Stadium in Round Rock, Texas. I'm Sean Woodland with Adrian Conway. Kiki Dixon is down on the field as we are set for Event 3, the Circus, presented by Concept 2. And the women in the first of 2 heats are set to take the field. Your overall standings coming in, and we also, for the women, have a tie atop the leaderboard as Tia Toomey and Laura Horvath both have 180 points, but it's Toomey with the tiebreak courtesy of her event win on Thursday night in Texas Heavy. Emma Lawson currently sits in 3rd by just 15 points, and it's Gabby McGowa followed by Alex Kazan. Just 35 points separate Kazan from Toomey for that top spot. Event number 3, 3 movements, and the killer cage is back.
The killer cage is back all the way from 2011. If athletes have been following along closely, but the circus itself is 3 rounds of 32 calories on the Ski Erg, 5 single-arm strongman dumbbell, shoulder to overhead. They're going to do 5 on their right, then 5 on their left. This thing is 70 pounds. It didn't create a huge obstacle for the men, so I'm interested to see how this limits the women's side. And then, of course, they're going to execute a killer cage, which they've got to complete down and back to finish each round.
Lane assignments for this first of 2 heats for the women. Karine Freyova will be in lane number 6, and she's an athlete who really needs to start scoring some points here. She is 19th place overall coming into this event.
Yeah, she is a 19th place, and I like her work capacity and how it plays out for this event. I know that she's a strong athlete. She is someone who can have high horsepower or power output on an erg like the Ski Erg. We talked about how much time the athletes will be asked to spend there in order to get those 32 calories. It's a place where she could create separation or make up ground on athletes that can move a little quicker than her through the killer cage.
Showed you the lane assignments for Heat 2, but here in Heat 1 you have Kyra Milligan, Lauren Fisher, Manon Anganez, Shelby Neal, Bethany Flores, just mentioned Karine Freyova, Paige Semenza, Danny Spiegel, Elena Caratala, and Christine Kohlenbrander. With a reset because the start buzzer failed to sound. Just a quick delay while we get that system on track.
The old get set, just kidding.
Now it looks like we are just about ready to get this thing kicked off. Karine Freyova at the top of your screen in the all gray. There's Christine Kohlenbrander. Bethany Flores. Danny Spiegel trying to keep the crowd entertained a little bit as we work our way through this brief delay. Let's talk about keys.
Yeah, man, we got a few things that we can focus on here. I think fate favors the fearless, and I'll tell you, we saw it on the men's side. It's equally important for the women that on the ski erg, they lean into riding their threshold and not just holding back, as this is a common place that we perceive as a timekeeper, and then adapt on the fly. These are new implements for many of these women. They've never touched a dumbbell like this, and they've perhaps never done the killer cage. How willing are they to lean into learning as they go, and attack it with confidence will dictate who, of course, wins this particular event, how it shakes out through the rest of the 10.
Now we are underway. First of 2 heats for the women. They will start with 32 calories on the ski erg, 52 reps per round for them.
We talked about how the men have attacked this ski erg with different styles. Some like to pull with more power, less frequency in their stroke rate, and others choose to increase their stroke rate, which means pull for more reps and just a touch less power.
Danny Spiegel, another athlete who's got to start amassing some points here. She has just 50 points. She's tied with Freyova for 19th place overall. Took 18th in Texas Heavy, then 14th earlier today. We will watch for judges' hands to go in the air, as that will signify when their respective athlete is just about done with her 32 calories. After this, they'll move to that Cyr Dumbbell, 70 pounds, and do 5 reps with each arm. Bethany Flores, 15th place overall, with 75 points after the first 2 events.
Bethany has an interesting technique there with the ski erg, where she actually hinges at the hip and pulls with the arms at the exact same time, where typically what we want to see is that the hips start to close, then shortly after, the arms start to engage in that pull on the straps to make sure that we're using the larger musculature first, and then the smaller, faster contraction to happen through the arms and the upper body.
Well, Danny Spiegel is going to be the second woman off of the erg, as Bethany Flores in lane 5 was first. Now Freyova there in the gray, getting a hold of the dumbbell. Down in lane 3, that's Manon Anganese. So take a look at Bethany Flores, who took dead last in the last event because she didn't do any of the back squats. Been dealing with a bit of a back issue and just decided it wasn't worth it to push through that event, as now Danny Spiegel is going to be the first woman to the killer cage. Christine Kohlenbrander now is done, along with Bethany Flores.
You wonder how much the women, of course, are utilizing the same killer cage as the men. So the distance is the same. Does this affect them a little differently because they have typically a shorter wingspan? But it looks like Spiegel is also there to do single touches on each rung, and she looks smooth.
Spiegel's going to take a break and chalk up before she will head back to start round number 2.
We see Kohlenbrander double grabbing every rung as she goes. We see Shadburn doing the same thing. So certainly a bit more disparity here already for the women than we saw for the men.
Flores is through, and Christine Kohlenbrander down in lane 10 is just about done as well. Spiegel heading back to close out round 1.
The thing athletes have to consider too is that one might be faster than the other, and you could perhaps go hand over hand like Danny is. But is she building more fatigue in her grip or in her arms, or potentially putting her hands at risk for tearing more than the women who are choosing to double tap each row?
Spiegel's done, and now her second set of 32 calories on the erg. Bethany Flores is looking to be the next woman to finish up round number 1. She's off the cage and working her way back to the erg. Paige Semenza in lane 7. She and Karine Freyova are fighting for 3rd place in this heat. Freyova is off first. She's on the right side of your screen. Semenza now is done as well. And in lane 2, Lauren Fisher, left side of your screen, heading back to the erg.
And we saw Shadburn be the first one off the erg in round 1. So the question remains is, can she make up ground on the other competitors that, of course, were leading her here Spiegel being the primary focus, who had a pretty substantial lead getting back to the erg on round 2.
32 calories. Increasing her lead.
A little more than 4.5 minutes has gone by here. Kyra Milligan and Shelby Neal are done with their first rounds. A 15-minute time cap. We are a third of the way through that allotted time. Elena Caratala is now back. Every athlete on to round number 2. Danny Spiegel in her final 4 calories here in round 2.
For everyone watching, the stimulus here is pretty potent. All 3 of these movements, again, having influence on the shoulder girdle, where we're hinging and pulling on that ski erg to pull those handles down. Then, of course, we're stabilizing the weight of 70 pounds overhead. Spiegel making very light work of that 70 pounds of Circus dumbbell. No problem at all for her. She has a similar transition that we saw from Roman between the legs.
Bethany Flores still sits in second place, and Danny Spiegel just got hit with a no rep. Right back to work, and she is done. Danny Spiegel maintaining her lead here in round number 2. Karine Freyova is now the 3rd woman to the dumbbell in round 2, as Flores finishes up and heads back to the killer cage.
And both of these women taking a little bit more time to make their way back to the killer cage. As you see Flores pick up her pace just a little bit to close the gap on Spiegel.
Spiegel once again looking smooth on her trip down the field on that killer cage. And she is through that first 48-foot length. Flores is on the cage as well.
Yeah, and you'll notice a difference there, right? Like she's gathering her hand every time, which essentially really increases time under tension on that grip. It's a bit of a safer technique, but it's certainly slower compared to what Spiegel is doing. And I think Danny can probably have that in the back of her mind even as she rests and waits before she heads back. An opportunity to create more separation is always going to be there as she starts her traverse back to start round 3.
Danny Spiegel almost done with round number 2 is Karine Freyova on the right side of your screen, just passed out of view. She just started her second lap on the killer cage. Spiegel working her way back to the erg. 32 final calories here for her. Having some technical difficulties with our scoring system, but we will have those scores for you later as they come in. 7 minutes, 45 seconds gone by here. 15-minute time cap. First of 2 heats for the women. Danny Spiegel making her 3rd appearance here at the Rogue Invitational. Her best finish was when she took 8th back in 2019. Comes in 19th place overall after 2 events. Now Bethany Flores onto the ski erg for the final time.
Bethany going to need to seize the moment and try to close the gap a little bit. On this ski erg, due to the way she's choosing to traverse that killer cage, we know that Danny has pulled away from her there each round so far.
Continuing to crank through calories. Karine Freyova now sits solidly in 3rd place. At the end of round number 1, she was neck and neck with Paige Semenza. Spiegel, Flores, and Freyova, your top 3 here in this opening heat. We approach the 9-minute mark, 6 minutes to go now before we hit the time cap.
I really love the urgency we're seeing here from Bethany. It's just repeatability. She knows what works for her in regards to the way that she pulls on the ski erg, and she spends no time with the the handles behind her knees. Notice right when she breaks there and hinges back, she's already up and getting tall for the next pull.
Spiegel's done. 10 reps here on that 70-pound Cyr bell. Almost 32 kilos for Danny Spiegel, and this is just not a problem for her whatsoever.
It's not even a thing, right? Like we watch her pick that thing up and just sling it overhead like it's nothing. She did an extra rep on the last round, didn't even hesitate to do it. Here, you didn't like what I showed you? Here's another one.
Lauren Fisher in the background working her way back to the ski erg. And Spiegel has one more lap on the killer cage. Bethany Flores just about done with her 10 reps. Karine Freyova trying to finish up her final 32-calorie ski. Christine Kohlenbrander is also on the erg for the final time. Paige Semenza. If you look at Danny Spiegel, Semenza's onto the final 32 calories, and Spiegel once again having no trouble with the killer cage. 10 minutes have gone by here. As Bethany Flores is onto the cage for the last time. Flores continuing with that technique that we saw earlier, as is Danny Spiegel. Spiegel has yet to drop down in the middle of a length here and looking to go unbroken again and set the top time.
Yeah, and really, this is the first hesitation we even saw from her at all, even that slowing just a touch.
And Spiegel is in. And Spiegel will win heat number 1, just around 10:56 unofficial.
And that's got to feel good for Danny to build some momentum. Not starting probably the way that she wanted to for the weekend, but you got to take the points where they're available.
Bethany Flores is on her way back. Flores 15th place overall after 2 events. Because of the rain, this is allowed. They can drop down while they are in the middle of a length and then hop right back up and continue where they left off. Originally, each length was going to be required to be done unbroken.
Yeah, this is proving to be still an amazing test of capacity for these athletes.
Bethany Flores is done, and she will get across the finish in about 12 minutes, 6 seconds. That's unofficial.
This might even lead to a nice precursor to, hey, let's bring back the killer cage and let's see him do it unbroken next year.
There's Karine Freyova. Currently sits in 3rd place in this heat. 2 minutes to go. There's now time being kept on the field.
Yeah, we haven't talked much about it, Sean, but accumulating the fatigue that they have already with these log muscle-ups, their grip is smoked. I know that all these athletes consider themselves professionals and they train for hours on end each day, but due to the combination of the slick surfaces, the heat of competition, the heat of Texas, the combination of all these things certainly leads to even more and more of a challenge than I'm sure a lot of these viewers might perceive of just going across some simple monkey bars.
Karine Freyova trying to get inside that time cap. We'll let you know when that hits. All the digital clocks on the field right now are out. Less than 1 minute to go. Kohlenbrander looking to get to the end of her first length. You'll get credited for 1 rep with every length. There's Freyova, who's trying to get through this last trip down the killer cage. She's got less than 30 seconds to do it.
And Sean, this is where you've got to adapt, right? Like immediately she should go to double touching each rig where she has more of an opportunity to hold her body weight with both hands. Instead, she could just go one at a time. She's going to accumulate reps at least this way.
The Circus. 3, 2.
Final seconds, and that will be the time cap. So only 2 women finish that event inside the 15-minute time cap. Dani Speegle unofficially with the top time at 10:56. Bethany Flores comes in after her at 12:06.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Love you. Can I have my water? Thank you, Daddy.
Speegle looking to start working her way up the overall standings. 19th place coming in. Her best finish so far is 14th. Looking to improve on that here, courtesy of that performance in the Circus.
Yeah, and regardless of how this plays out, I'll tell you, the momentum that you build after a heat victory, boy, that's a good feeling. And Speegle really set the tone early, dominating the ski erg with consistency. And then, of course, when she got her turn at that dumbbell, it almost looked like it was too easy for Dani. Smooth transitions all the way, shoulder to overhead. She chose to utilize, again, a bit of a hybrid press, which is kind of a combo between the push press and the push jerk, where she's rebending her knees, but not very much. And then she made smooth work from round 1 all the way through round 3 of the killer cage, choosing to one-touch all of the rungs. We saw a slight hesitation there towards the latter part of her triscend there in round 3. But other than that, it looked like an easy day for Dani Speegle. Heat win for her. That's a good feeling.
10:56 unofficially for Dani Speegle with 1 heat remaining. We will be back for the final heat of the day for the CrossFit athletes as the women wrap up the Circus. Final heat for the women in event number 3 of the CrossFit competition. It is the Circus presented by Concept 2. Thanks for being with us, everybody. I'm Sean Woodland with Adrian Conway. Kiki Dixon is down on the field. Tia Toomey and Laura Horvath tied with 180 points, but it's Toomey, courtesy of her event win in Texas Heavy, who occupies the top spot in the overall standings. Emma Lawson and Gabby Magawa sit in 3rd and 4th, separated by just 5 points. And it's Alex Gazan right now in 5th. She is just 35 points out of 1st place. It is tight in spots 1 through 5. 10 women will be on the field for this 2nd and final heat, and they are all trying to track down Danny Spiegel. Spiegel has the top time from heat number 1 unofficially at 10:56. Final heat is underway. 32 calories to start here on the erg. After that, it's 10 reps on that 70-pound Cyr bell, and then 1 lap on the killer cage.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, Sean, one athlete I got my eyes on, which why would you not have your eyes on this athlete? She is the defending fittest woman on earth and the defending Rogue Invitational champ, but it's Laura Horvath. She has got a unique ability to hang and do it well, and what I mean by that is her history and her enjoyment for rock climbing has really developed a stamina and a strength on things such as the killer cage, on things such as, like we saw earlier, the log muscle up. So I think this is an event that she could have some great success in, coupled with all the time that these athletes will spend on the ski erg, and of course, the shoulder to overhead with the Circus dumbbell.
Laura Horvath there on the all black, moving towards the right side of your screen, who is now in the lead, along with Emma Carey and Ariel Lowen. 32 calories to complete here.
We talked about fate favoring the fearless here is one of the keys where these athletes are on the ski erg. They've got to be willing to lean into a bit of discomfort here. They can't settle back or throttle back in hopes that this is merely a timekeeper. They've got to advance forward. And of course, they've got to adapt on the fly. They've got to be able to adjust to how this dumbbell feels, the size of it, how to cycle it appropriately, and the same with the killer cage.
Horvath is off first and onto the dumbbell for her 10 reps. Down in lane 3, Emma Carey is second. Now just about everybody else moving to the dumbbell at the same time. Horvath is done.
And you like the aggression that she turned to run to the killer cage again to create any separation that she could when she could. We see her one touching all the rungs as she starts.
Emma Carey is off, as is Emma Lawson. Now Paige Powers, Alex Gazan, Ariel Lowen, and Tia Toomey getting to the cage, followed by now Emily Rolfe and Danielle Brandon will be the last woman to start her first lap here on this 48-foot piece of equipment as Laura Horvath is working her way back. 52 reps, 44 reps, pardon me, per round. 132 reps total. Now Horvath is done, and she will begin round number 2. Second place overall because of the tie break with Tia Toomey. Horvath has a 4th and a 2nd so far at the Rogue Invitational.
She's created quite the buffer right out of the gate on round 1 only, as she made it to the ski erg right there at 3:02. So she's looking at probably more than a 20-second gap already that she's established between herself and the rest of the field.
Rain starting up again here at Dell Diamond Stadium. That is certainly going to affect their grip on the killer cage. There's Paige Powers heading back for her 2nd round. Horvath continues to lead here. Ariel Lowen on the right and Emma Lawson on the left. Trying to cut into Horvath's lead here. Time to beat 10:56. That's unofficial from Danny Spiegel. Danny Spiegel needing a solid result here to move her way up the overall standings as Tia Toomey is now just getting back to the ski erg. Toomey in 7th place in this heat currently. Laura Horvath continuing to work her way through these 32 calories. The 76 rep mark is when Horvath will move back to the dumbbell. You can see the rain starting to come down again here at Dell Diamond Stadium in Round Rock, Texas. Avoided it for most of the day, and then Mother Nature decided that we had a smooth enough time and we needed to make some adjustments.
That's right, until it was time to play. Laura making her way to that Circus dumbbell at about 447 here as we see. We'll see what the gap is like that she's created now, even coming off the Ski Erg. But one thing that I appreciate about this weather is it forces even a leader like Laura to have urgency. You just never know how slick or how difficult that killer cage is going to be as you reapproach it due to the change in the surface from the extra rain. So it's certainly forcing these athletes to be urgent and stay focused throughout these evening events.
Laura Horvath is done and onto the killer cage for the second time. Emma Carey is now just getting to the dumbbell as Carey is in second place behind Horvath. Emma Lawson in the blue shorts now hoisting up that dumbbell. Here comes Paige Powers at the far end of the field. And Ariel Lowen walking her way to the dumbbell. There is Emma Carey, who's in 9th place overall right now. 13th place in Texas Heavy to start the competition, then took 7th earlier today and seated the bar.
And we know one thing about Emma Carey from years past and her opportunity to be in front of the media is that she loves to suffer. She likes to grind. She loves the grind of the sport. That's what drew her in as a youngster, of course, pulled into the methodology from her family. But she excels at things like the Ski Erg or any single modality test due to her willingness to lean into that discomfort.
Horvath heading back to close out round number 2. Now she is done. Tia Toomey now getting back to the cage as Horvath is going to start her third and final round on the Ski Erg, and she is just blitzing through this event. Tia Toomey, who came in tied in points with Laura Horvath, but had the tie break and sat atop the overall leaderboard. Looking like she's going to get supplanted in that spot by the woman you're looking at now. Laura Horvath is way ahead of Danny Spiegel's lead pace that Spiegel used to set that top time at 10:56.
And we saw a little bit of this from Laura last year, Sean, as we watched her rip off 4 event wins in a row. We know that she's the type of athlete psychologically and emotionally that feeds off of momentum. So she as she looks side to side, notices she's the only one skiing on the Ski Erg that only makes her more tenacious.
There's Emma Lawson, and smart move by her, has that towel draped in her shirt. There are towels all over the competition field for the athletes to use. Ariel Lowen has now moved into second place. Now Emma Carey sprinting her way back to the erg. And Tia Toomey is now moving back. So Toomey has moved from 7th to 4th in this heat.
And looking like she's actually skiing with a bit more urgency. Reaching her arms overhead a little bit quicker than she was on the previous round. Now she may be a bit more familiar with the killer cage and how it's going to feel on her grip. She's allowing herself to take a bit more of a chance on the erg to finish up this event.
Tia Toomey, who has won the Rogue Invitational every time she has competed in it. And in now 23 events, she's won 11. This is the 24th event in which she's competed. Danny Spiegel's top time has been updated. That's the official time. So 11:33.55 seconds is the official time for Danny Spiegel.
And it looks like it's not going to end up being close between her and Laura, as Laura just makes that dumbbell look like it's hardly anything, almost push pressing it directly overhead every rep.
There's Tia Toomey, who's now moved up into third place in this heat as Laura Horvath is done with that Cyr bell, and she'll head back to the killer cage for the third and final time. And since we had to push action back here, the third Strongman event, the log medley, that has been postponed until tomorrow. This will be the final event of the day here at the Rogue Invitational as Laura Horvath is working her way through her final lap. There's Emma Carey, still in second place in the heat. And Tia Toomey moving to the 70-pound Cyr Dumbbell.
And Emma's got to know and be aware that Tia is very aware of every opportunity to close the gap and, of course, earn more points. So to feel her that close, she's going to be doing all she can to close the gap and run Emma down, including that smooth transition that she just made from shoulder to shoulder overhead when she saw Emma put the dumbbell down.
Laura Horvath taking a quick break. Ariel Lowen is also onto her final set of dumbbell presses. Now Emma Lawson getting there as well as Horvath chalking up the hands. You can see Emma Carey in the background on her final lap. Here comes Tia Toomey. That time to beat in the upper right-hand part of your screen is not going to last much longer because Laura Horvath is just about done with this final length. She's going to bring the riser up to help her get back onto the bar. Laura Horvath is done, and Laura Horvath is going to pick up the event win as she will rack up 100 points and looks to sit atop the overall standings all by herself after day 2, 10:48.15 seconds. Now here comes Tia Toomey, who has passed Emma Carey. Toomey has moved into second place in the heat and has a chance to get second place in the event. And Toomey is done, and what a charge from Tia Toomey, who will take second place in the circus and only surrender 5 points to Laura Horvath. Danny Spiegel, the good news for her is that she'll pick up 90 points with a third place finish. That will move her way up the standings.
Wow. What execution there. I mean, we talked about her coming back to the Ski Erg, Sean, around 7th place to finish up round 1, then 3rd place round 2, and then, of course, now she finishes 2nd.
And now Emma Carey will be the 3rd woman in this heat across the finish line. That could be 4th now in the event, as Ariel Lowen is just about done. We only had 2 women finish this test in its entirety in heat number 1. Ariel Lowen is across.
I got to say, Sean, Ariel was one of the athletes that showed a little bit of concern about this dumbbell, the Circus dumbbell. She was like, I don't know how I'm going to respond, you know, one side versus the other, if I'll have a dominant side that won't go well, if the dumbbell will be too big for my smaller stature. She absolutely crushed that event, so showed a little bit of concern as we watch Paige Powers take a bit of a slip.
And you can see why changing the standard was the smart move here, because it's just too slippery on those bars sometimes to get a good purchase. Originally, you were going to have to do those unbroken down, unbroken back. If you came off, you were going to have to start all the way back at the beginning of the length. Powers is done. 3 minutes to go before we hit the time cap. Paige Powers came in 17th place overall. This should help her move up the standings a little bit. And now Emma Lawson looking to be the next woman across the finish line. She's on her final length here on the killer cage.
And it surprises me a little bit with Emma struggling. It seems like with her grip being fatigued, I wonder if she's having some hand issues like some of the other athletes are.
Now Lawson is done. She will make it in with plenty of time to spare, and she's taking a look at those hands. And
oh gosh, yeah, for sure.
gutsy performance from Emma Lawson to work her way through that.
Yeah, that's tough. We've been there, most of us. Too many pull-ups in a workout, bad hand position. Got to take care of those hands. It's a huge priority. We use them for so much, and you don't realize it until you're suffering from something like that.
Now Alex Kazan is in danger of getting time capped. Danielle Brandon on her final lap. Danielle Brandon, 12th place overall coming into this event. And Alex Kazan is coming off an event win. She's passing Brandon there in the background on her way down on the first part of this final lap. Kazan looking to hit the time cap here. Danielle Brandon is getting close. She's got 15 seconds to finish up here and get herself across the finish line before the time cap.
Yeah, couldn't have used that time to chalk it.
If she gets to the end, she'll get credit for this final rep. That could help in a tie-break situation. Not going to happen for Danielle Brandon. It's Laura Horvath who's going to lock up the event win. She will be your overall leader heading into the weekend, but only by 5 points over Tia Toomey, and she absolutely demolished this event.
She did, Sean. She killed it from start to finish, to say the least, and she was someone we had our eyes on. We know that the selection of movements, going from a monostructural movement into a weightlifting movement into a gymnastics movement, is something that she excels at historically, specifically when that gymnastics movement is a hanging modality.
5th career event win at the Rogue Invitational for Laura Horvath.
That's right, and she killed it right out of the gate. She skied aggressively, which is something that she has as a strength in her back pocket. When she needs to go fast on an erg, she knows that she's got that capacity. These shoulder overhead were absolutely nothing for her. She started off just straight push pressing, just a dip and a drive overhead. Smooth transition between her legs, a lot like we've seen from those successful on the men's side. Roman Khrennikov, of course, did the exact same thing. And then when it came to the killer cage, it was far from killer for Laura. She's got strong hands, strong grip. Her hobby of loving the rock climb really paid off dividends for this, and she absolutely demolished the conclusion of Friday night.
100 points for Laura Horvath. She picks up her 5th career event win at the Rogue Invitational, and she is with Kiki Dixon.
You're blurry. Yeah.
Laura, congratulations on your 5th career event win here at the Rogue Invitational. Roman won this event for the men, and when I asked him what was the most difficult thing, he said the killer cage. Would you agree with that? Why or why not?
Yeah, definitely. Like the ski and the dumbbell was there to like slow us down a little bit, to be there like as an obstacle. But it was all about the cage, the monkey bars.
Now we were watching your replay on the Jumbotron, and you were kind of picking apart this or that, even with the event win. Are you just always in competitor mode, even if it's against yourself?
Yeah, I think I am.
Great way to finish the night. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you guys, you're awesome. See you tomorrow. Thank you.
3 events down, a 4th, a 2nd, and a 1st for Laura Horvath, as we are a 1/3 of the way through this competition, and she will be your overall leader heading into Saturday. And that will conclude our coverage here on day number 2 at the 2023 Rogue Invitational. The final Strongman event of the day, event number 3 for them, has been postponed until tomorrow. For all the latest updates and schedules, as far as event results and overall standings are concerned as well, you can head to roguefitness.com/invitational. Danny Spiegel does herself a favor with a solid win in heat number 1, but it's Laura Horvath who wins the event. That is going to do it for us for today for the 2023 Rogue Invitational. For Kiki Dixon and Adrian Conway, I'm Sean Woodland. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We will see you back here tomorrow for Saturday at Dell Diamond Stadium in Round Rock, Texas.